So today's episode is going to hit close to home because today I'm going to teach you what I've learned working with family members. So today's going to be a hot topic, but before I jump in today's show, if you have not been over to nextlevelwholesaling.com, you got to go over there. I've got a gift for you, and that is the Next Level Wholesaling Assessment. If you're looking to have a highly profitable wholesale business that runs the day-to-day without you with big, fat, juicy wholesale deals and a business that gives you the ultimate freedom, go to nextlevelwholesaling.com and take the Next Level Wholesaling Assessment. It's going to rate you in the major areas of your wholesaling business. And once you take this thing, it's going to become abundantly clear on the next thing that you need to do to get to that next level. So head over to nextlevelwholesaling.com. All right, so let's talk about working with family. And I have extensive experience with this, and I'm going to share with you some of the good and some of the bad and how you actually can make this work. So my first experience working for family where I was the employer, right? I'm going to talk about this from the employer perspective, where you are the one running the business and taking on the risk. And if you are in a partnership with a family member, there is usually the alpha dog in the relationship, right? There is someone who's going to take up the risk and put up the money and be the action starter. And then usually there's going to be I don't want to say an inferior partner, but there's going to be someone who is going to be more of an employee role. Like let's be real there. Now, this is not always the case. Sometimes you have a general 50-50 of value, but that is very, very, very rare. If you are listening to this, most likely there is the owner and then there is the employee who is acting as a partner. So I might be foreshadowing some of the things that I'm going to talk about today. So just be aware of that. But my first experience working with family was back when I first got married. And this was in 2004, 2005, 2006, right before I had my first daughter. And my beautiful wife, Marianne, was doing some of my administrative work for me at night. So I'm going to date myself here, but we used to take the phone numbers out of the newspaper and we used to age them, right? That's what my coach had taught me to do. So take the newspaper, let them age, hold on to them 4, 6, 8 weeks. And then what we used to do is we used to put them in Excel spreadsheet. And my wife used to use this program called Dragon Naturally Speaking, where she would speak the phone numbers into a microphone and it would put them into an Excel spreadsheet, which was pretty cool. And then I would call those numbers at night and try to close deals. And that was awesome. It was a really, really big help. And Marianne used to do it for me pretty religiously. And so interesting enough, she did not get physically paid for that, but I sure as heck appreciate it. And that all worked for about 6 months until we got pregnant with our first child. And after my wife had our baby, it became very spotty. Her availability became very spotty. So even though she knew how to do it and she did it great and I trusted her and I didn't have to necessarily pay her a salary, we shared all of our money 50-50. It became a little strain in our relationship where I said, hey, how come you didn't get this done? And she would say, how come you didn't get up at 2 a.m. to feed our daughter? Now, if you have kids, you could probably relate to that, but that's very real. Right. And so whenever you get in a scenario where it's tit for tat, right, where you can't hold somebody accountable because of the domestic situation, and let's be real, like that's tough, right? And who wants to hold their wife accountable in a position? That's not a very good position. Now, since this is the podcast is 97% males, I'll tell you, that's not a good position to be in, men. Not good, right? And the 3% of ladies who listen to this, first of all, thank you. I appreciate you. And you probably would not like that feeling either, right? Being held accountable by a spouse for a job-related thing. So as soon as I felt a little bit of strain there, right? All my admin work wasn't really getting done. I wasn't able to hold my wife really accountable, right? I wanted to keep that relationship strong. I read the book, The 4-Hour Work Week, and I hired my first virtual assistant, which was just so amazing, right? There are so many good resources out there. If you want to go to nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com/VA, nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com/VA, it's going to take you to one of our partner sites where you can hire somebody full time, an MBA, for like $800 a month, right? And that's even on the higher end. So I was able to do that, hire someone, take all that administrative weight off of my plate, and immediately my marriage has remained strong ever since. By the way, Marianne, if you are listening to this, thank you, by the way, for working for free for those first 6 months. And that was awesome. So, and by the way, I still work with that first VA today, which is awesome. His name is Tazir. All right. So that was my first experience. And so if you can't hold them accountable, don't do it. All right. You need to hold your people accountable. You need to hold them to a high standard. And if the person that you're working with, if this is not their work priority, not their main priority, guess what? They've told you that, right? So the same thing, it wasn't that my wife was a bad person or I thought any less of her, but she had, taking care of our daughter was much of a larger priority than this. And making the money for our family was more important than having my wife do it, right? It was more important that we had somebody do it, which she appreciated. So the second thing is when you're working with family, okay, and I had a family member working with me, and one time we had a conversation offline, and he says, Todd, I feel like you hold me to a higher standard than everybody else, okay? Now, this is a tricky one because we have a team, and I had a family member working for me, and my family member happened to be an exceptionally good individual performer, right? He was an exceptionally good individual performer. And he came to me and he said, hey, I feel like you hold me to a really high standard. And I said, yes, I do. And the reason for that is that you are my blank, right? And I won't tell you who it is. I don't want you guys putting two and two together here. But I said, everybody's watching how we interact. And because we're related, I can't have any appearance of holding you to a lower standard or having below market, or I shouldn't say below market, but below average performance or even average, because people are going to judge you. So keep in mind that as you work with other people, you will have other team members and employees judge the fact that you have somebody else working on your team. So anybody who works for you, who is a family member, must play at a higher level. I am sorry. Okay. That one's going to be controversial, but if they don't like it, they can go get another job and work with somebody else. Their performance has to be next level, as in next level wholesaling. Okay. So after that, and I have my next thing, people will see that, they will appreciate that, and they're like, okay, this person is going to set the tone. Okay. So that being said, right, of course, it is not fair for someone who have to perform at a higher level, right? But they should be compensated, right, at appropriately, right? So number one, they do have to be better. But number two, because they are better, right? If they are truly better, and I mean actually better, you're not trying to make them better in your mind, right? It is okay to pay family members 10 to 20% above market value, right? 10 to 20% above market value, okay? And so what does that mean, okay? That means that if someone is typically making $100,000 a year, and I know it's a lot of money, and you're paying them $120, that's probably okay, right? Because they are bringing more to the table. But the biggest mistake that I see people making is that they develop these compensation plans that will actually keep their company broke, and they actually will pay their people to a point where those people have an inflated sense of value. And that's really, really, really important to get away from. This hurts both the company because the profits are not going where they need to be, and you're going to handcuff your company because you're not going to be able to hire other people or pay other people like you need to. But it also handcuffs the person who you're paying because they're not increasing their skills. They're not getting better. They're resting on their laurels. So do not overpay your family members. If they are better, pay them a little bit above market value, right? 10 to 20%. If you have other people who are performing at a high level, right? You're not paying them more because they're your family. You're paying them more because they are higher performers. And make sure that 10 to 20% you understand how that works, right? Not if someone's paid on a percentage point, right? So let's pretend for a second that you have an acquisition specialist and you are now paying that person, I don't know, 15% of rev. 10% above that would be 1.5% more. So that would be like a 16.5%, or you pay them 20% more. That would be 18% instead of 15%. But again, this is someone who is actually performing at a higher level. Okay. You need to be doing that. Do not get into these crazy relationships where you're overpaying people. It will literally demotivate you, destroy your business, really hurt them in the long run, and it will also hurt the relationship. Trust me on this one, okay? And by the way, again, you need to pay all your superstars really well. Just don't get in a position where you're paying too much, right? The word is appropriate compensation. Okay, now, number 4, and my last, is you need to create competition. So when you have family members working for you, you want to be appreciative, but you also always got to be hiring, right? They have to know that they're not the only game in town. Competition makes everybody better. So you're like, Todd, why would I do this to my family members? Because when you bring somebody else in, or the threat of bringing somebody else in, right, your family member is automatically going to feel pressure, right? And so they are now going to raise their game. They will have to increase their skills. They will get better. Now, if they do that, they will increase their value, right? And then earn raises from you. If they don't, well, then you're going to see that maybe the family member who you thought is a superstar is not a superstar. My goal for you, if you have a family member working for you, is to keep that relationship strong, right? For sure. And you'd want to keep that, but it has to be appropriate, right? And so I have worked with family members over the years. It's worked great. They've made me and I've made them a ton of money. But you've got to keep these relationships intact. You got to keep everything tight, set high expectations, pay appropriately, create competition, right? Because let's say all of a sudden this person who's working with you and now decides, hey, you know what? I don't need to work with so-and-so anymore, right? I want to go out on my own. Hey, that's great. You actually made them better so that now they could go out someplace else. Their skills have grown, right? And now they can make even more, and they'd have you to thank for it. Now, let's pretend like their skills sank, right? And all of a sudden they shrunk underneath that for you to continue to pay them at a high level when their skills are not where they need to be. You actually are hamstringing them, because eventually this won't work out, right? Because you'll eventually come to your senses, they'll quit, or you'll fire them. There'll be a big blowout, and all of a sudden they will not be able to get a position as good as the one that they had with you, and you actually kind of hurt them in the long run. So it's always really good to set that standard, hold them to a high standard, pay your people well, but appropriately, okay? I'll do a quick review. Number 1, if you can't hold somebody accountable, don't hire them. Number 2 is, for family members, you got to keep the standard a little bit higher, even if it's just you and that family member, because eventually you're going to bring other people in and everybody is watching. Number 3, compensation should be appropriate for the value given. It's okay to pay family members 10 to 20% above market if they are above average in their performance. If they're not, there's no way in hell you should do that, and they probably shouldn't be working for you anyway, and you're hurting them just by having them work for you. Lastly, create competition, right? You want to bring in other people, interview other people, always let them know, hey, you know what? If you're not happy here, you can go check something out. Now, granted, a lot of these relationships work out very well. In my case, I've had family members make me millions, and I'm super thankful for that. But just keep these standard. If you want to know more, go to nextlevelwholesaling.com, and I will talk to you on the next episode.